Okay. So we were having a discussion beforehand to try and work out where we had gotten up to last time. We think we know, but I'm not sure if other people can remember exactly where Ian was saying he thought that it was up to, and when the sun was up on the second page, if people have got, I think there's different printouts, yeah.
Yeah, but the sun fell on the places.
Yeah.
And then this is nice paragraphs Darren's written, which introduce that.
Yes.
Okay.
So do we want to read the passage again? I thought that. Does anybody here want to read that?
I like to be reminded, and I like to hear it read. Do you? Yeah. I do, yeah.
So who would like?
Want me to read it?
Yeah, okay.
I'm good at those. And forthwith they sprung up, because they had no depthness of earth. Some initial spiritual growth followed by a period of fading away. There are times in our spiritual journey when there is a flurry of activity and it appears that the Lord is opening a new, lasting avenue of growth and development.
So Darren, we were saying that we'll read the passage first.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you want, so just so that we're...
Oh, the actual parable.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just so that we know what we're talking about. All your interpretations. If you want.
Paul's got an amazing voice.
Paul, do you want?
We're
so just so that we can read the passage again. Yeah, sorry.
Chapter 13. And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places, where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up, because they had no deepness of earth, and when the sun was up, they were scorched. And because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. But other fell into good ground, and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. And the disciples came and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto them in parables? He answered and said unto them, Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he hath.
And are you able to read the next bit as well, which is the interpretation? So, yeah. If we may as well, it all sort of flows on. So.
Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. When anyone heareth the word of the kingdom, and understandeth it not, then cometh the wicked one, and catcheth away that which was sown in his heart. This is he which received seed by the wayside. But he that hath received the seed into stony places, the same is he that heareth the word, and anon with joy receiveth it. Yet hath he not root in himself, but dureth for a while. For when tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, by he is offended. He also that receives seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the care of this world, and the deceitfulness of riches, choke the word, and he becometh unfruitful. But he that receives seed into the good ground is he that heareth the word and understandeth it, which also beareth fruit and bringeth forth some 100-fold, some 60, some 30.
Thank you for that. Now, I think a number of us have actually been through this at least once. Well, we've had a couple of weeks where we've done this. I'm not sure whether there's anything that we've discussed previously that really stands out for anybody that they're wanting just to share as to what in the previous weeks. Darren, is there something?
It never dawned on me before, but I'd always focused in on the deceitfulness of riches. There's nothing wrong with money and wealth. It's power, and we can do good with it. But I just saw the connection there with the cares of the world and the deceit that riches can solve those cares. I just saw it then. I hadn't seen that before. But, okay, the cares of the world and the deceit that riches are going to somehow fix the problems of the world, when love is the only thing that I think will fix the problems of the world.
For me, the previous weeks, the things that really stood out was that 75%, so only 25% of the time, the seed is going in the right place and being that it's able to be fruitful. And the other thing was, I think in the first week, was where you were saying to really think about, is this bearing fruit? So thinking about what we're doing and thinking about, is this bearing fruit for us, was another thing that really stood out for me previously. So, not sure.
Here's another take. The stony, the hard ground, the stony ground is amongst thorns. It can also be stages of life we go through. So it can be a succession of stages when we're young and we throw off. I've got a grandson who's turned 16 last week, and he's been brought up in a very religious household. But he's got to that stage now where he's throwing it off. It won't last, but this is the hard ground. They start treading pathways that they're friends and all that sort of thing, and the world looms very large for them, very large. His mother sent me a wonderful photo of him on his birthday last week, and I could see the pride in himself and his expensive shoes and all this sort of thing. Well, that's fine, but it's, I think the Lord is also promising us development in stages.
And I'm thinking it's painful for us, isn't it, when our kids don't necessarily embrace the values we want for them.
Yeah.
But I'm reminded too that if they prematurely embrace those values, that's harmful as well. Because they have that's supposedly where most midlife crises come from, is premature values. And then that person hits a midlife crisis in their 30s, 40s, sells everything, or whatever the crazy things people do. So I think we've got to be encouraged. If our children are sort of kicking back against us a little, that at least there's healthy processes of
going on,
ownership and going on.
Yeah.
I like your confidence, Ian. It won't last.
No, and the Lord makes sure it doesn't last. There's a passage in 3 books, Secrets of Heaven, Paul, which says that if we are so locked in a mindset about this world, for example, or our place in it, and dismissive or marginalise spiritual things. The Lord doesn't visit any evil on us, but He will allow something like a big disappointment or a trip up somewhere to bring us to our senses. A bit like the prodigal son, who's feeding pigs and then, sorry, Darren, but something happens that's an awakening. And so the Lord is working for awakenings. So I'm very, very much wedded to that. The Lord is forever looking for his opportunities to bring awakenings to us.
And sometimes we can see that in society, and then when we do, it's very refreshing.
Isn't it?
Because with Jim Carrey, the comedian, he came out the other day and he said, I wish everybody could get rich and famous to show that it's not the answer.
Yeah.
So
That's not the answer.
No. So could you imagine when he was in his height of his career and his drug abuse, the ways he was, that was a phase for him in which evidently he sowed good ground, because he's realising the errors in his ways that brought him happiness. So I think in some ways celebrities can be good for us, and Keanu Reeves being a perfect example. So if we can use that.
Denzel Washington.
Yeah. Let's see him counsel Will Smith. It was really good. He said that's the devil in your head. That's what he was saying, because. But on a smaller scale, so if we can look at timelines of celebrities and you can see where they've grown, gone through that period of like what we're talking about. Some never do, and I think we can use that in our lives too. If we can see that they're not using the deep down spiritual. Well, let's just say that this microphone here, if we looked at that microphone like it's a microphone, that's all it is, it runs itself. Well, we're going to conduct our life at face value. Do you know what I'm saying? I think if we look beyond things more than, and that's what I think a lot of these celebrities are doing, is they're seeing that they've made it to the top. I mean, to the top. So they're searching for more. So how many people in the world are in that situation? But parables brings it to a realistic level. Whereas if we didn't have we'd be constantly searching. I know for me personally, when I use parables for people, I go, oh wow, that's amazing. So can you imagine how many people are in that stuck phase, the phase that we're saying, because that's just nonsense, that can't happen. But these parables, they bring it to reality. A 2,000-year-old book we can use for principles now. But just getting through to people. Sometimes you get so frustrated because you know that a person knows there's more than what they see, but you can't force them. So I think with parables, this being particularly, well, I had that one in my car and we were camping with my brother. And he goes, what's this? Oh, religious stuff. I said, it's the parable of the sower. Have a read of it. And he had a bit of a gander over it. He goes, I can see what they're saying. And he said it pretty much. So then we started comparing people where they are as with their seed. I mean, we're not comparing who's good or bad, but where their seed has landed. I mean, you look at criminals that their seed has landed in the wrong area, but through that they've grown and taught other people that are on the wrong road. So
it makes me think, Chris, of manure.
Yeah.
Like, you know, good plant will respond to manure, or you could burn it too. But sometimes criminal activities, sometimes great things can come out of that. I'm thinking as you talk too about fruit. All of these situations have the seed. Sometimes the plant even gets up there, like these celebrities, but they just fall short of that fruit. Oh, how disappointing! I think the fruit for me, as you were talking, I'm realising the fruit is the awareness of what really is important. That's the fruit, isn't it? You eat of that, you go, this is what's really important. Family, love, all that stuff. Anyway, sorry.
But all those small things, I mean, I try to explain this, but honestly, I get excited over the smallest things, but I feel sorry for people that need big things to excite them. I really feel for them. I don't. It must be difficult to look at everything with money value to try and bring you happiness, or it's just simple little things is where we start. And it's sad because people in the last moments of their life, I mean, working in the industry I've done, and the confessions people have told me in their last moments of their life, I wish I would have done this. And you know what? There was no mention of a Porsche. There was no mention of dominion over other people. It was all to do with interaction with people, what I should have done when I was here. I should have done this, I should have done that. And so I think now's the time to do that. And these parables can help us realise that it is it's the path. It's the path that's lit up for us. So
It's very much so. It's when I was a teenager, I become a movie star, and up to up to the 20s, only earning is the position in society and fame or money or anything like that. And among all our movie stars, we left is probably only a bit of a money, or a bit of a bitterness, or a bit of a, separation, or a bit of a divorce, or kind of things like that. But my life's different. When I was 20, Jesus found me and put his gene into me. I mean, it changed my life. So I become a different seeds put into the ground. I died from the movie star society, but I'm alive to put into my life into the ministry. So I lead thousands of people to Christ, and it's many people even become a church leader, become pastor, become missionary. So you can see this is a parable. The life is depending on what soil you get in.
And seed, like you just said.
And the seeds.
Because the second parable is all about two different seeds now. Good seed and bad.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is really changing the seed. So now I feel, even now I'm not famous anymore. I'm not rich anymore. I'm not, being like well known or position in society anymore. But in the kingdom, and because we've kind of like accumulated so much worth and wealthy in the heaven.
Yes.
And so I feel that much.
You're famous in heaven, and you're rich with the word.
That's good. We were talking about this the other day, how sometimes we'll say a family in a low socio-economic area, and we'll say there's a family of 5, and they all follow the same, except for one. And one is academically minded. He's very driven. He wants to disassociate himself with those types. This is where I'm trying to think where this seed would be. But this person wants to disassociate any sort of roots of where they come from from this low socio to the point where they've got the knowledge, they've got the wisdom, but we're trying to work out what would it be, like my ex-brother-in-law. So they try to dissociate with them from their roots so much that they're complete. So I'm just trying to think of what seed.
Chris, could it be, I'm thinking about this, because as you're talking, I'm thinking of Pharisees, and the Pharisees didn't want to acknowledge their own sin, only wanted to acknowledge the good they did and then criticise everyone around them, almost like pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. So I kind of think, if you go back to the penultimate parable, the Garden of Eden, that would be the seed from the knowledge of good and evil. What do you think, Ian? As opposed to the other one, the tree of life is trusting that the Lord has a beautiful plan and purpose. And even when some of the most incredible movers and shakers in life have come from low socioeconomic backgrounds and have learned things there that Abraham Maslow, in terms of the psychology circles, he had a very cruel upbringing, cruel parents, and yet he became a very compassionate man. So there's often the opposite coming out of. So is that a little bit of getting?
Yeah, totally. But humility is the key, I think, because look, I found this a bit common too. Is when people I found this is another example is people that have been overweight and lost weight don't want to associate with people that eat like they used to, and all of a sudden they're condescending towards obese people. So I think humility is the key here for us to use that wisdom in a correct manner. Because if you were an obese person, you had an eating problem, you should be able to reach out to these other people and give them assistance. But instead, you're one. I remember I used to eat like that, and so do you know what I mean?
It's like the only tools they've got to help other people is to criticise them and attack them.
Yeah, that's right, totally.
And instead of loving them and helping them and supporting them.
But we all know where they came from. I'm thinking, what would you say when someone said that to you a year ago? Wouldn't be very encouraging. So I think that's what we're lacking here in our life, is our experiences we should be using to help one another instead of being bitter towards one another. I mean, let's just say supreme commanders of World War I, if they could, these senseless charges, I mean, if they could talk to modern day leaders now and say, look, we've done all this before, listen to it from the words of somebody who's been there and seen the atrocities and sent these young men off to their deaths. I mean, I think that's what we're lacking, is instead of, I know personally, if somebody's, I used to work at a war veterans hospital, and the amount of stories I used to hear, and it enriched me, and it made me, I'm so glad. And with Sean in China, you know, I tell people about your stories in China growing up, and instead of being angry, we should be
humble and learn.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it all comes down to. Yeah.
Do you want to take us to that?
Yeah, we probably need to. So, Darren, can you, maybe you could read that.
Sorry about that, before I got all mixed up. I'll just start at the top of the paragraph again. And it's about there being no deepness of earth, as you would say, Paul. There are times in our spiritual journey where there is a flurry of activity, and it appears that the Lord is opening a new, lasting avenue of growth and development. And yet, farther down the road of time, we find that the new development has waned. Should we lament or attempt to revive that process? Maybe. The advancing soul understands the importance of working with spiritual processes that are led by the Lord and not by the lower ego. Here in this parable, we are both promised and instructed that not every seed will find fruitful soil. It is important that we work to improve the state and reception of our heart and mind, that we endeavour to receive all that the Lord has for us and our development. However, spiritual peace holds within itself a quiet reassurance that even the lost seeds and unexplored opportunities will not fail to serve some higher purpose. The advancing soul trusts in the Lord and his process by letting go of what has been, especially when there is no clear guidance to return to such endeavours for deeper self-examination.
The previous two parables and this paragraph give me some clue. I'm thinking in this world, the different countries have different types of spiritual environment.
Yes.
For example, in some countries, the Buddhism is dominant. In Japan, for example, possibly Taoist and Buddhism, but Christianity, I guess, I'm not sure, I guess it's not dominant. In China, the dominant idea is there is no God. So this environment is important to influence people's spiritual growth. For the people living in the for example, the Buddhism environment, people are very hard to escape from this environment spiritually, to convert to believe in Jesus. Of course, everyone has his inside internal element or internal basis that is important. For example, you are the seed of weight, not the seed of body. So you will grow to a weight. You are not going to grow to a body. However, if the environment is not suitable, this seed will decay, will just simply die.
Yeah.
Cannot grow spiritually. And human beings' spiritual or psychological characteristic is, if some idea has entered this person, that is easy. If that idea is primary, okay, that person is easy to hold this one, to believe this one for a long time, even to the lifetime. I believe this. There is no God. I believe this world is made of the substances. Except for substances, it's nothing. This idea, if this idea is entered this person's idea, quite hard to get rid of it. And in addition, if some people believe in God, but they believe only is enough. Okay, even though the people heard the Swedenborg's writing, and you need to believe, not only need to believe, but you need to show your belief in your heart, in your behavior, in your life. But people who believe only is enough. Then they don't believe, they do think, oh, Swedenborg's writing is nonsense. Because the Bible said, faith is enough.
Yeah.
If I have faith, I'm saved. I don't have to do anything myself, because people are unable to do anything.
They have a wrong understanding of faith, don't they?
Yes. So it's so hard for people, for human beings, to finally go to the right, true truth. People are very easy to be misled by environment, by misteaching, by falsity. So from this point, we human life is full of the challenging and danger, misleading. So if to find before death, to find the right path, right teaching, to take the right action is not easy, really not easy. Really not easy.
See, something that comes up for me, like sometimes, I mean, I've spoken to people close in my life who have said, oh, I would like to be able to believe the Bible, or I would like to be able to believe what you're saying, but I just can't. And that sort of comes up there, that people see it as that it's a strong act of will that they have to be able to believe it. That
give yourself, dedicate yourself, give your life to the Lord. But that sort of mentality scares people. Like my auntie will start, because my cousin survived cancer and it come back again, and her answer was, because you said you'd give yourself to Jesus and then you turned around, that means you got it back again.
Wow.
So the whole family asked me, what's your take on that? I went, well, you've got to think of the Lord like a parent. A parent wouldn't wish.
Wow, what a good answer, Chris.
That's how we've got to think of it. As a parent, what would a reasonable parent do?
I wouldn't mind making a comment, and that is that one thing that came to my thoughts as you were talking is when we look with the natural eyes, it's kind of like somebody surveying land and saying, absolutely worthless. I can't do anything with that. But the Lord can look below the surface and go, do you know how many deposits of oil are there? Or how many deposits of salt, beautiful salt mine, or there could be rich minerals. And so even when we are stuck in a society that tells us there is no God, people are still making good choices. People are still coming away and saying, I'm not going to steal, it's not right. I'm not going to touch that woman, she belongs to someone else. And those are those rich deposits deep underneath in the soul that if I didn't have Swinmore to read to find out exactly how we pass over and what happens, that there is a spiritual world, then you go to heaven or hell, I would be in great and utter despair. I would. And I can see why a lot of Christians are in despair and think it's all hopeless. Who can be saved? Even Jesus, even the disciples said that to Jesus. Who can be saved? And he said, fair. But what's impossible for man is possible for God. So I encourage myself, even when society is messing us up, and it does a good job, the Lord is watching so carefully all of our lives and guiding them carefully, because if he can't get something to fruit now, if there is rich minerals in their heart and their soil, he will use it. He won't waste it. They'll come, in the next, even in that short period in the spiritual world, they'll come to see, I didn't think there was a God. Now I know there's a God. That's what would be my take on it. Anyone else? Anyone else's thoughts on that?
Yes, I believe that even though the China is a non-God environment, but currently estimated number of God believer is about 100 million.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So because God is working in the heart of people, even though the environment is not favorite, but everyone has his own spiritual guidance or feeling. I believe so. But the environment sometimes is playing a very important role, because if everyone around you is saying that there is no God, why do you believe in God?
Yeah.
It's very easy to make this person lose the confidence.
Well, I won't use Roundup anymore because I know it's not really good. But there's not a lot of options, is there? There's not a lot of alternatives. One thing I've tried is putting a bit of salt around the pool and just stop the weeds coming up there, and that works. But if I'm not careful, if I get too much salt in the ground, nothing else will grow. And that's a bit like what you're saying. If you have a really, really harsh society, sometimes it's like salt and you're not seeing much of anything good coming out of that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about problem with the Archbishop of Canterbury,
Yes.
the leader of the Church of England at the present time, and his straying into politics and a dirty environment of politics. And that is why the Church of England are losing many members, because it seems the very head of the Church of England is being distracted by more secular problems.
Instead of the spiritual leadership.
Instead of spiritual, exactly. Yes, they're losing sight of what they're there for.
Wow.
What is it?
Can I just take a word from one? Environment persuades, but the persuasion is on the surface. Because we want to get on, we want to be accepted. It's the prevailing mood of China, is led by communism. But it's on the surface. And when those people are somewhat withdrawn from or taken away from that surface persuasion, you said to me, well, people laugh at you if you say I'm a God believer. So you think, oh, I better not be a God believer. But that's not what's coming from their heart.
No.
That's what's coming from their head. Because they know it's got to be, I've got to live here safely, I've got to have a job. And I don't want any of my family to suffer. So it's all up here. But there will be some people for whom it becomes of the heart. But not everybody. Far from it. It's, I remember the story of Elijah. When the king and the queen, Ahab and Jezebel, were persecuting believers. And Elijah said, look, I'm the only one left. I'm the only one left. Yeah. No. God said, you're not. I've got 7,000 over there. So, going back to what Darren said, it's the Lord is working into situations, and a lot of these things that tend to sweep away people are up here. They're not there.
Yeah.
I just make that comment.
It's good.
Well, I sometimes feel that autistic people, they have that ability. I mean, I've met autistic doctors. Their social skills aren't there, but their heart's there in what they do. So they're separating. So we need those people, because sometimes if we get a doctor that's too caring, they're going to get involved in their work.
Too much involved with the patient.
Yeah, that's right. So they can't move on. So we need that ability of these people in our society to, how do I say it, not to be cold-hearted, but to be able to differentiate between the heart and the mind and what's the best outcome for us. These are the types of leaders we need sometimes. These, do you know what does that make sense?
Higher rationale.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, which can put the emotional out of it if necessary and make a good rationale.
Oh, totally. It's hard for me to understand those people because I get
You're not
so
that
emotional. I'm totally opposite, but I'm glad we have these people. So if we think of our society as, they're a cold-hearted, they're actually not a cold-hearted person. They can see the outcome and they're not getting emotional.
A hand is not a foot, nor is a foot a hand, and they each do something special.
Totally, yeah.
Okay.
Can we read some more?
Yeah. Yes. If you
Shall I read a bit more?
Yeah, that would be
I'll
good.
plough through a few of these.
Thank you.
Or we might do a fourth month when we don't. Okay. And when the sun was up, they were scorched because they had no root. They withered away. Spiritual processes require conflict as selfish states are removed and replaced with love, compassion, and spiritual purpose. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. External worries and cares that choke out the life and the affection for the heavenly life. That's what you were saying. Yeah. Every soul has a mixture of selfish states and selfless states. To know the difference can be a real challenge. For example, we may choose to act in a way that is selfless for no other discernible reason than to do good to another. And yet, beyond our conscious perception, deep within the ocean of our unconscious mind, a selfish motive is at the core of our apparent selfless action. Ultimately, we can never discern all of our motives and intentions. We can, though, make room for more seeds of heaven by developing a discipline of obedience to sacred text as it reveals. Oh, better fix that one. As it reveals its inclinations to our mind and heart. Each time we act in obedience to the call of sacred text, not looking for a personal reward, we uproot one of the thorns that seeks to overrun our thoughts and feelings. So I'll keep reading, yes. But others fell in good ground. The heart and mind of the advancing soul prepared for love and truth by spiritual practice and good teaching, and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, the complete fullness of regeneration, some 60-fold and some 30, completion coming through spiritual combats. He who has an ear, let him hear. An internal desire of the heart to follow after the Lord and be led into love, service and goodness. And the disciples came and said unto him, genuine spiritual questions arising from a hunger and passionate heart. Why speak thou unto them in parables? The desire to understand spiritual language and the deeper sense of sacred text. He answered and said unto them, because it is given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. The call of the advancing soul is to search out sacred texts for enlightenment and transformation, leading to reception of heaven's love and light. But to them it is not given. Where there is no desire for the heavenly path, exposure to higher wisdom and revelation will not lead to transformation, but indifference and ultimately a form of contempt. Perhaps I should stop there. Is that enough, Jane?
So, is anyone...
I very much liked what was said in that larger paragraph. Darren, every soul has a mixture. I'm talking about.
Oh, mixture, yeah.
And Darren goes on to say, there's nothing to choose to act in a way that is selfless, but beyond our conscious perception, deep within the ocean of our unconscious mind, a selfish motive is at the core of our apparently selfless action. That's very, very potent, that statement. It's true. Ultimately, we can never discern all our motives and intentions. That's a really, really, really significant statement. Because we've got to look for self at work in our life, but sometimes we've got to just say, look, I'm doing this for the good of the other. Lord help me. I know I could easily be looking for my own, what I get out of it. But you know, if we just do that, we'll weaken those subconscious motives that we've got. You know, they're too deep for us to pull out. And so I think the Lord is saying, just get on with the life, the spiritual path, and trust that these other things will have less and less impact and less influence on us if we do. And that's how I see that. Yeah.
Can I comment on that, Ian?
Of course you can.
I have seen, even in the new church too, how it can get into a trap of doing so much nasal gazing, so much self-examination.
That's right.
That even that becomes another ego trip. And you can start to sort of feel superior to others that don't do that, and criticise people that don't do enough deep examining. And the only answer I have is I let the Lord lead me into the self-examination that I need. I try and stay listening, and when He's putting His finger on it, and usually it will be the prick of my conscience. Oh, that stings. So then my spiritual nerve endings are saying, hey, there's something here the Lord wants to deal with. That's when I'll do the nasal gazing, and I'll get to the root of it and go, oh, that's not a good root. That's right. Otherwise, as you say, Ian, I have found it more helpful for me to just get on doing good.
With the Lord's help.
With the Lord. Staying with the listening ear. Yeah. Is there anything you want to point out, Lord? No? Okay, keep going. That's kind of, for me anyway, so.
This is a little bit different, but I've had discussions with people and I said, okay, are you scared of death? Now, none of us are perfect, but I'm finding friends of mine that have lived very immoral lives, their answers would be, oh, there's nothing. When you're dead, that's it, there's nothing. And you can see, like, I'm no psychiatrist, but you can see the fear in their eyes. There's this fear in their eyes. It's, oh, there's nothing. No. You can try and hide it all you like, but there's something in their eye they have to face.
Even their response is almost automatic, isn't it?
Oh, totally.
Like it wasn't even really think about, no, there's nothing.
No, it's immediate. There's a saying, you said, how do you tell an atheist? Don't worry, they'll tell you. It's like, it's like vegans, as they say, and no offence to anyone, but yeah, they will.
I'm Welshman.
Yeah.
But the only reason they're saying that is because they've got a conscience under the surface.
Oh, nice. Wow.
They wanted to dismiss it on the surface because their conscience is troubling them underneath.
I don't want them to change. Well, this is all I say, is I say, myself, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared, but I'm more scared of the pain and the people I live here. I'm not afraid. I'm totally like somebody that tries to pretend they're not. So, like you were saying before, with reading Swedenborg and reading the Word, it gives this footing for us to be able to, and I don't know how people can live and not see a spiritual sense in things.
Yeah, right.
It's hard for us to grasp. So how are they getting that fed? How are they being fed?
From the spiritual world. Don't forget there's
deep rivers, deep under the river.
That's right. It's flowing in all the time. And sometimes the waters lap around our spiritual feet. There's got.
Nice.
If that wasn't active, all would be lost. But it's not lost.
I just had a nice vision, Ian, as a thought. Chris, what you're saying is like, I think it's a Psalm 1, the righteous are like trees planted by the water.
Planted by the rivers of water.
So when we have spiritual life, and we meet in groups and do this sort of stuff, we're being planted more and more by a beautiful river.
Indeed.
And we look out there, and sometimes you can look out there in the social landscapes and friendships and go, there's just no water. There's nothing in their life. But there can be deep, as Ian's saying, deep underground deposits of water that they're tapping into that we're not seeing, and so their roots are still there. But I know where I'd like to be. I want to be by the river. That's just...
So the lower ego isn't letting
On the
them
river.
drink from there? Is that right? You think the lower ego is not letting them drink from there?
It's not letting it surface. It's not letting the water come to the surface. There's no springs and rivers, but God has still found a way to provide something for them deep in their life. As I say, I'd rather live by a river. I mean, yeah, and get freely have that water whenever you need it, sort of thing. You know?
Yeah. Getting back, a crisis will enable us to draw on that water.
Go deeper.
You see a young couple whose baby's been born at 28 weeks or something, and is in a humidity crib, and they're not sure, the nurses, whether they can save the baby. And that couple can be people who come from a totally non-religious background. But the crisis opens the door, that's not the word, takes the lid off the well.
Takes the lid off the well. Wow.
And you can see it. You can see it.
That's
I'll never forget being sorry mate, I'll never forget being in the, not all that long ago, in a lift at the Wesley Hospital. I was there, not as a patient. I was there when I was still volunteering. And it was the 7th floor of the East Wing. I got in, and there was a young, if you saw him normally you'd say, he's a toughie. He's tough. Young 20-year-old. I'm sure he'd never seen the inside of a church or anything like that. Probably wouldn't know what the Genesis was, the beginning or the end of the Bible. I don't mean that disparagingly. But I looked at him and I said to him, there's something wrong, isn't there? And he just melted and threw himself into my arms.
Wow.
And he said, my dad's just died. So there's an opening of the well for him, you see, just like that. The lid was taken off the well. And all the self-certainty and everything else.
Ego,
mate. Good boy. It was, and he just cried as the lift went down.
Well, I just saw recently Angry Anderson did a concert. Now, I didn't know this, but he looked very emotional in his eyes. He wasn't his usual, And I said to my brother, it came on Facebook and he just wasn't himself. He usually puts on a joke, but he lost his son. But apparently a drunken friend had beat him to death or something.
What?
Yeah, so I didn't know about this.
That was a few years ago. It was a while ago.
Recently. No, I didn't know that, hey? But you can see the difference in him now. It's like, usually he has a joke and he gets up there, but I can tell by looking at him, he's searching.
Wow.
He is searching for, he's on the microphone, he's looking in the air like this, and I said to my brother, what's with Angry? He's just changed. He's really, that's what,
angry.
He's just come down, so maybe he's tapping into it. So he just wasn't as loud, he's really quiet. I mean, a tough man like him, it's, you can just see I didn't know that. I didn't know that about his son at all. My brother's explained, but that makes sense because he just made a comeback. But it goes to show that we're born as emotional beings, and if we suppress that emotion in any way, it's just not healthy.
Because we're seeing that, I've been thinking, I'm so sorry. I have leading a young couple, or I should say young pastor, and in Beijing, come to our home to leading the fellowship. Since they are migrated to Australia, our relationship, too far away, so I didn't pay attention on them constantly. But now they were divorced. So I'm so crying. Sarah and I, we feel that we're too selfish. We didn't care to others, and they are the spiritual leader of the hundreds of people. But they are very close to God. But somehow today I still don't know why they are just separation and divorce. They have 3 children. So since you see that, so we need to be constantly to think about others, to think about what we are influencers to serve to the surrounding people.
It happens so much. There's lots of pastors that,
And they're under attack.
that
I know that.
it happens.
Yeah,
but it's so devastating because this person is a role model for their whole congregation.
I know.
But even the smallest splinter, if you ignore it, could get infected, can't it? This is,
They are more focused on success and what they
prosperity and stuff. But this is the thing, Jesus encouraged us to take care of the little things. What does it say in Song of Solomon? The little foxes spoil the vine. Because you have a nice big fence, you've got a beautiful vineyard. The little foxes know how to get under get under in the little splinters. Or I like to, little stone in your shoe can stop you, can't it? Just not big. No one trips over mountains, do they? They trip over little things. And life has a way, if we're not paying attention, it's the little things that do end up being big. And we can be so focused on, am I successful? Have I got a big church? Is all the seats full? All that sort of stuff. But the little splinter there in their marriage might have been just enough over the years to hurt.
And you've got to stop beating yourself up.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up.
You've got to stop it because they may need that journey.
Yeah.
Here is somebody you just told me who was focused on success and prosperity and all this kind of thing, and now they've stumbled.
Stumbled.
And so the Lord will be working with them, but He'll put them onto another pathway. So He didn't want them to divorce any more than you did.
Oh.
Of course, the Lord never wanted them to divorce. But now, like Darren said, now that they didn't attend to that little splinter and take it out, things developed, their marriage became infected, they've gone their separate ways. But now that they have done, the Lord can use that.
Yeah, He won't waste it.
He won't waste it.
Romans 8.
Yeah, that's well said.
Do you want me to plough us through the James?
Yeah,
Plough
that
us
would be
through
good.
the end. We're on the last page, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some element
For whosoever has, to him will be given, and he shall have abundance. When even a small amount, see, this is a nice counter to the small splinter.
Yeah.
The small good seed. Small good seed. When even a small amount of genuine love is allowed to dwell in the heart, it will reproduce into an abundance of love and joy. But whosoever hath not, for him shall be taken away even that he has. External forms of religious performance, but no real affection or longing for the selfless path or life. True spiritual wealth is a mind filled with heavenly wisdom and a heart filled with love. Dark forces seek to steal away such wealth from the advancing soul by filling the mind with pride and self-knowledge, filling the heart with self-love. Wisdom and pride cannot exist together, nor can self-love and heaven's love. One or the other must be removed so that there can be a balance and true freedom. Unbelief cannot coexist with genuine faith, and thus the Lord seeks to remove from us that which impedes our spiritual progress. So I would say, in comment to that, the Lord didn't want their marriage to end up the way it is, but ultimately he is looking at their eternal salvation is probably the most important thing. Yeah, even more important than the earthly marriage. So here's the conclusion. We must approach spiritual... Oh, sorry, Tom.
It's one of the other must be removed.
One or the other, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's another
Does that
error.
mean in one or the other?
Yeah, that's another. I need a pen to write these down to fix it. One or the other must be removed.
But
Yeah.
why would you remove wisdom and heaven's love?
Well, if a person wants
So
to
you
be...
still get that balance and true freedom.
Yeah, exactly. Is it all right if I go ahead and answer it? Yeah. Okay, so ultimately freedom is all about love. And so the Lord needs us to be free to love, even if that thing we are loving is evil. And if a person is given too much, if they're given wisdom by God when they want to love evil, then the Lord in his mercy will say, well, I will take away that wisdom which will stop you from being in freedom, and I'll let you go your way even if it means ending up in hell. It's not what the Lord wants. But true freedom is, think of the prodigal son. True freedom is the father saying, all right, son, if that's the path you want to go, here's your money. I really hope it works well for you. It's not what the father wants, but to truly be a loving father, you must let them go into freedom.
So it's almost like the old saying, you lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah, exactly. Did that answer that question?
That's made the point.
Made the point, yeah. So if a person has gathered all the wisdoms of the church during their life because it served them while they were in this world, but they were actually on their way to dark places, then at some point the Lord has to then remove all of that. Even what they think they had will be taken away from them, Jesus is saying, because it's not ultimately going to help them end up where they want to end up. Sort of thing.
It never went into their heart.
It was only on the surface, wasn't it? It never went into the heart.
I think of convicted Roman Catholic priest pedophiles, one of two of whom have been widely publicised. They never had wisdom truly in their heart, and it's better that wisdom be taken away, because
It'll torment them in a way, wouldn't it?
it'll torment them, but they would profane it.
Oh, yes, profane it, yeah.
You know, you put it to somebody who's in an evil life, they just tear it apart. You try to say to somebody who's in love of adultery or that sort of love, the last thing they're going to take on board, the last thing, and in fact if you say it, it's like what Jesus said, it's casting pearls before swine, because they're just going to wreck what you're trying to say. I've seen this when I was trying to, many years ago, counsel a couple who came to me for marriage. He had been married before, and I got hold of a passage in Swedenborg, which comes at the end of his book on marriage love, where Swedenborg talks about the delusion that the grass is greener on the other side. So I read it to him, and he exploded.
Whoa.
He exploded. So it was better, and I didn't carry on that night. I just found a way of saying, well, see you another time kind of thing. I never conducted their wedding. I don't know where they went. But what I'm getting at is that I wished I hadn't have read that passage.
Oh, okay.
Because it's the last thing you wanted to hear.
Yes. Swedenborg is very careful, for one more thing. Swedenborg is very careful to say, look, hellish freedom is not really freedom.
No, it's not.
It's like the guy that smokes cigarettes says, I know I'm not addicted to these because I can quit any time I want. Well, then do it. No, I want to smoke. I want to smoke. So the Lord is always trying to keep us in balance. And in the afterlife, hell is the closest thing the Lord can give people who don't want God. So they've got some freedom, some sort of life, without snuffing them out altogether and not existing. Hell is the closest, and heaven is the closest thing we can get to, perfection of being, to be with the Lord. So I'm being careful here to say that true freedom is heaven. True freedom is heaven, but in order to give each individual freedom, the Lord will take away wisdom and goodness and love from people, so they can go fully into their evils in the afterlife. Does that sort of make sense?
It very much makes sense. Honestly, it's 50 years ago, and in China society, it's at least 2 generations living together, or 3 generations, 4, sometimes 5 generations living in one household, and care each other, and harmonize each other, and not much same sex, or not much of not much freedom in terms of the very wild or very dirty, very nasty, or respect the elders, but now the society is only 40, probably only 40, even 30, some areas 30 years, but corrupted, and the people go wrong, the rebellion and the sex, and it's horrible. It shocked me, and even because we want freedom, we want to learn Western society. Look, they are freedom, but now even worse than most of the Western society, even worse.
Do you know how I gauge sometimes of how life is? Comedy. I love George and Mildred. Not one swear word, and I laugh my guts up. Comedy now, if they're not swearing or talking about absolute filth, it's boring. So it sort of gauges how our society is, how do I say it?
Culturing.
Yeah. So, but I look at these old British comedies and I love them. But these days it wouldn't take off because it's not. The immorality isn't there. Oh, boring. Oh, you know what I mean? It's sad.
The tastes have gone weird, haven't they?
Yeah.
Also pronounced the filial piety.
Pedophilia. Is that it?
Pedophilia.
Is that what you mean? Like love of children? Sex with children? Pedophilia?
No, filial. Yeah, it's a kind of respect your elder.
Respect your elder.
Pedophilia. Filial piety. Yeah, filial piety. Filial piety is in China. Always filial piety. But now, even much against each other, worse. Filial piety is that is Confucius' teaching.
Love and respect your parents.
Children need to respect your authority, which is fathers, mothers, elders,
Teachers.
Filial piety.
Filial piety.
Yeah, filial piety.
Hadn't heard that word.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you'll find in Western culture, particularly Anglo-Saxons, the way we are towards our elders is, you've earned your taxes, see you later, go. But I find, because my friends growing up were Greek, Italian, French, and the European, and another Indian guy I worked with, is they value their elders.
Yes.
They very value them. Look at the indigenous people around the world. They have a lot to, but in our society, it's get into a nursing home, you paid your taxes, see you later. But what we learn from these people.
Oh, well, you've got Google now, though, Chris.
Yeah. Oh.
You Google mother, Google father. You don't need to turn to the elders. You just Google it.
It's because I was very rebellion when I was a movie star, and I left my parents, my father, and you were intellectual, but you had to dig in the ground in the countryside. You could look at me shining, worthy than you, I'm earning more than you, this kind of thing. And then one day, when that the Lord teaching, so I went back to Beijing from Australia, and because my father wouldn't want to using washing machine and to
Wash his clothes.
to washing the clothes only the one or two underwear or one shirt. So I actually he put in the but so I wash him that underwear. That I wouldn't think any young people wash by hand washing the father's underwear. And he cried. But when I wash it, he cried in another room. When I look at it, he cried. So I was close to cry. So I hugging him. Probably after 20 years, the first time I hugging him. Filial piety. Filial piety.
Filial.
So that
I think I learned that word.
that has been teaching us for years, but no one practiced anymore. No one practiced, but I did. So immediately my father said, me, the relationship is close. I think it's because Jesus teaching. Filial piety. So this is very, very important.
Oh, totally.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, totally.
Jane, do you want me to quickly finish this?
Yes.
The conclusion says we must approach spiritual practice with patience and faith. We can experience abundant life if we continue to practice charity through wisdom and make regular time to read and meditate upon the Word. The Lord has made the path straight and clear, and yet there will be many obstacles along the way. We need to keep our eyes upon the goal while developing a strong vision for love, hope, peace, and all the fruits of the heavenly kingdom. Our hearts will be filled with countless wonders and delights if we stay the course. Quote, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man sows, he shall also reap. For he that sows to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that sows to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith." So our spiritual focus, pay careful attention to any moments of discouragement that arise within you. Remind yourself that spiritual fruit takes time and that there are many areas where the Lord intends you to reap heavenly states in the not too distant future. How might you approach and deal with a discouraging event in a more positive and life-giving manner next time?
Good things happen to good people.
Good things happen to good people.
Well, while this is fresh in my mind, somebody got me onto this movie, and this Japanese scientist, he did studies on the effect of water, of thoughts on water. And so he would yell at the water and say, "You're ugly, I want you dead." So all these negative things. Now, then he said positive things to the water. Then on another scale, he got samples of water from a beautiful, pristine lake away from any negativity. It was beautiful. But go to a major city and it's just these ugly pictures. Now, this is going to get you thinking.
When he would freeze it, Dr. Emoto, is that the one?
Yeah.
When he would freeze it,
So-
as it would freeze, it would make either beautiful crystalline pattern or really horrible.
And we're 90% water.
Yes.
Like, isn't that...
Exactly.
That's just...
Exactly.
Wow. But when he said Adolf Hitler, and it was this ugly picture, then he said Mother Teresa, and it was this beautiful star. And it was just... I mean, that's just... That just really opens up so many ways of thinking. And when you think, what am I doing to the water in my body?
Well, I'm going to take away. Sorry. I'm going to take away what you said, Jane, today about. Is it is what I'm doing bearing fruit or not? That's going to try and be my focus. Am I bearing, well, I'm obviously bearing some fruit, but is it poisonous berries and sharp thorns, or is it voluptuous, life-giving, beautiful fruit?
Dragon fruit.
Oh, red dragon.
Okay.
Do you want to close in prayer or something?
You can.
Do you like me to close? That's okay. I'm following your lead.
Dear Lord, I'm so grateful for this opportunity to come together with your people, to break bread with them, Lord, and to learn from them, to be encouraged and inspired. Lord, all the wonderful seeds that were just sprinkled around the room, Lord, the roses, the geraniums, the sunflowers, all these rich, beautiful seeds that have gone out today. May our hearts grab a hold of them. May we go and practice them. May we share light, love and fruit to this world. And may the people of this world see you better because of our lives. Amen.
Amen.
Happy Mother's Day to you, Jen.
Is it today?
Mother's Day.
Oh, happy Mother's Day.
Mother's
Oh,
Day.
birthday, Mother's Day. Yeah, yeah.